Hey guys, it's Richie the Whiz Kid here from the Best Darn Diddly Review Show, and I'm here to talk to you about PopThreads.com, your number one source for finding awesome nerdy t-shirts. Are you sick from not knowing what to wear when you go out with all your friends on the weekends? Well, don't have a cow, man. Go to PopThreads.com, and if you use the code Simpsons at checkout, you can save 15% on all your t-shirt needs.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today, somebody better call my mama, because we are talking about Mother Simpson. A very emotional episode. But first, it's about to get funky in here, because joining me, as always, your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
By the way, listeners out there, by funky, he actually means funky. I smell completely fine.
Okay, Brodus.
Yeah, man, this is quite the emotional episode, especially on the ending. It might be the most beautifully sad ending in Simpsons history. I'm not sure, but you know us. We're going to get you guys there. There's a little bit of a road before that point. So let me go ahead and
how appropriate.
Yeah, you see what I did there? Let me go ahead and throw it back to you. The man, the myth, the Muddy May Suggins. It is Miles.
Can't podcast, sleeping. So we've got a really good episode to talk about, so let's just get right into it. It's very emotional at parts, and it's a lot richer in trivia than I originally realized. There's a lot of fun stuff that we're gonna have to discuss from the
A lot richier?
A lot richier.
Woohoo!
Mother Simpson debuted on November 19th, 1995. It had shortened credits, so there was no chalk gag, and the couch gag was the Simpsons being reset like a bowling pin setup with the bar sweep and everything. It was actually a pretty cool, and I liked it.
Yeah. Especially being a bowling aficionado that you are with your bowling degree.
We are bowling award winners, sir. We actually have prizes from the bowling league. A trophy pin sitting on the desk as I look across my room now.
Mine was on a display case. I don't know where it's at now. It's in one of my moving boxes.
Oh, way to be proud.
I'm not moving again there, listeners, but I moved recently, and I don't know what box it got put into.
Moved recently. That was months ago, sir.
Like 3 months ago. What did we get that award for? I forgot. Most team something.
It's like you guys suck at bowling, but you're here every week.
We didn't suck because of us.
We drank a lot of beer. I'm pretty sure that's why they gave it to us.
We had like a different fourth person every week.
That's true, yeah. And I think we were so shocked because we were like mid-conversation, not paying attention to anything when they called us. We were like, wait, what? Huh? Oh, cool. We get a prize.
It's because we were the only team that had t-shirts that matched.
That is true. That is true. We did have that. And our names are on the back.
I still have mine.
Me too. Anyway, that was the couch gag. All of that.
Us talking.
Just for that 2-second bit. That whole thing. There it is. The director's commentary on this one was very rich, so I'm going to go ahead and say it featured Bill Oakley, Josh Weinstein, the director David Silverman, a writer that we have not talked a lot about yet, Richard Appel, and Matt Groening.
A star-studded cast talking about us. That's what you meant, right?
No, not even a little bit.
Damn it.
This one opens up with Mr. Burns wearing a construction suit. He's got like a hard hat and vest on, and he's announcing this highway maintained by Burnsadine.
Here's your caption, boys. Local hero shuns spotlight and pitches in.
What an angle! I love Lenny here. He has basically Burns has his entire power plant crew picking up trash on the weekend, and Lenny's like, I can't believe I'm spending half my Saturday picking up garbage. I mean, half these bottles aren't even mine.
Ahem. Let's have less conversation and more sanitation.
So the
Which he's already thrown his uniform off, right? He's back in his Burns getup already, like as soon as the picture's taken.
Oh, dude, that was just for photo op. He's not actually doing diddly squats. Yeah. It's everybody else that's actually working, and they notice that somebody's also not pitching in their fair share. Homer Simpson is nowhere to be found until we see him announcing himself up on top of a waterfall.
Hey, everybody, up here!
Smithers is immediately frustrated and tells him to stop frolicking and get back to work.
Right away, Mr. Smithers. I'll just walk across these slippery rocks. Whoa!
Splash! Splash! This turns into this really funny bit that actually reminds me of a children's book I had when I was a kid called Fortunately, Unfortunately, where Lenny and Carl just keep narrating back and forth as we see Homer plummet down the waterfall into some sharp rocks and finally towards the nuclear turbines.
Is that the same one that the pig went through a few weeks ago?
I think that's the one that gave the pig flight, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow, good catch. Oh no, he's going over the falls.
Oh, good. He snagged that tree branch.
Oh no, the branch broke off.
Oh, good. He can grab onto them pointy rocks.
Oh no, them rocks broke his arms and legs.
Oh, good. Those helpful beavers are swimming out to save him.
Oh no, they're biting him and stealing his pants. They notice that he's going off towards this turbine, and he's actually about to get sucked through, and I love what Burns says here.
Smithers, who was that corpse?
And Smithers is already sobbing. Sir, one of the finest, bravest men ever to grace Sector 7G. Which, I want to know why. Why? I mean, I can understand Smithers being sad here, but really? Like, one of the bravest men to ever grace Sector 7G? What brave acts has Homer really done?
He just saved the plant from meltdown.
I was literally, as I was saying that sentence, I was like, man, I hope he doesn't point out last week's episode.
And he's caught up in the moment, man. Homer also saved him from a meltdown like a few seasons ago on sheer luck. He pulled a Homer.
Yeah, that's absolutely accurate. He pulled a Homer for sure. I think that's the way Homer becomes heroic half the time, of course.
By sheer luck and coincidence.
That's
and because it adheres to the story to make the path go forward. But that's besides the point.
I do want to point out that this sequence was amazingly directed. Every fall and hit was really, really well done. The emotion you see on the faces of Lenny and Carl even. And Smithers especially. In fact, this moment actually reminded me a little bit of David Merkin. I was almost convinced myself for a second that he may have actually had a part in this, but it was in fact David Silverman who directed the sequence.
You were halfway there, Miles.
Yeah, I had that David part down. You're totally right. We quickly discover, however, that Homer and Bart are snickering behind a bush at the top of the waterfall, and Homer could not be happier with his $600 purchase of a lifelike dummy.
It's a good thing that thing stayed in the water and didn't, shred with stuffing coming out.
That would have been really bad, yeah. At least that happened on the other side of the dam, we can be certain.
Yeah.
I also really enjoy that Homer is like, now we earned this day off, son, so we're going to make the most of it. And we cut to this really great sequence where we see two kites flying side by side. And for just a moment, you assume that Bart and Homer must be bonding. But as you follow the kite string down, you discover it's actually Lisa and Marge. And Homer's laying in a hammock, counting for his son as he hits a tile or a brick with a hammer.
Yeah, or the concrete slab on the back porch, basically. But
they're just seeing how many times they can hit it, basically.
Technically, they're doing something together, though.
That's true. I mean, that's quality time together in its own way.
Quality hammering time.
This beautiful Saturday afternoon is disrupted by some knocking at the door, and we see Reverend Lovejoy, Ned Flanders, and Maude are all at the door there to console Marge and the kids on their loss of her husband and the kid's father.
Marge, we can't tell you how sorry we are.
You have our deepest condolences. I'm sorry, I'm just nervous. I didn't mean any disrespect.
What are you talking about?
You know, Homer's passing?
Huh?
Away
Huh?
into death?
What? That's ridiculous. Homer's not dead. He's right out back in the hammock.
They all actually go out together and take a look at the hammock, and they noted in the commentary that they were experimenting in this shot with the colors and trying to give it kind of a more somber tone, and it really worked out well. You can see a clear difference in this shot, especially compared to the image we saw just moments ago where it was nice and bright and sunny. It's starting to have the sun set in this sequence, and Homer has fled the hammock, leaving it blank, with Bart, I guess, also going with him. So you just see an empty hammock swaying in the wind with the sunset behind it in kind of a darker tone than it was previously. Oh, Marge, of course Homer's alive. He's alive in all of our hearts.
Yes, Marge, I can see him.
And then Lisa actually comes skipping by and is just very pleasant. Hi, everybody.
Marge, I'm going to give you the card of our juvenile counselor.
So, of course, everybody thinks Marge is just not grieving well, or she hasn't come to terms with it yet. Yeah, she's not coping well. She's going through the denial stage. And then even worse with Lisa, who's just so happy. It's a great juxtaposition here, which is really funny, especially with how slowly and just how patient Lovejoy is when he delivers that line.
And the paper they have has the beavers listed as trying to save his life, which they stole his pants. They weren't trying to save him.
They're just using his denim for damaging, or for doing their dam.
For building a dam.
Yeah, damaging. That's a thing.
Damaging dam.
Yeah, that's it.
Damage.
The doorbell rings again, and this time it's Patty and Selma at the doorway, and they have a tombstone, which Marge is, of course, very surprised by.
It came with the burial plot, Miles, but that's not important. The important thing to them is that Homer is dead.
Oh, and Selma chimes in, "We've been saving for this since your wedding day." Oh. That's just mean. And to be fair here, Marge immediately kicks them out and even calls them ghouls.
Yeah.
So she's also not, at least letting her sisters run all over them like they kind of normally do.
She's probably getting angry too, because this is multiple instances, like one right after the other, where people think Homer's dead when he's clearly not. Which I love the setup that they're getting to.
Yeah, it gets so much worse here because suddenly the lights go out and Marge looks out the backyard window to see a workman up on the telephone pole cutting the power line, and she screams out, "Excuse me, sir, I think there's been a mistake."
No mistake. Your electricity's in the name of Homer J. Simpson, deceased. The juice stays off till you get a job or a generator. Oh, and my deepest sympathies. Click.
And right then, Homer starts walking through the door, and Marge immediately confronts him. Homer?
No, but the lights are off. Like, all you see are Marge's eyes, and when she calls Homer, you just see his eyes come onto the screen.
I'm so glad you said that.
that shot.
Yeah, I really like that shot, and we're not alone there. The animators also love this sequence because it's super easy and saves them a lot of time. They wanted to point that out on the commentary. So Marge does, though, or Marge's eyes, I guess, since that's all we see. But we hear Marge say, "Homer?
That's my name.
When I asked you if that dummy was to fake your own death, you told me no. You go downtown first thing in the morning and straighten this out."
I love that line. That's the setup I was talking about. Like, she already knew probably what was going on by that time.
She figured it all out immediately. Also, there's just a little tag joke here. Lisa comes in, or again, only eyes is all we see. "Mom, Dad, Bart ran into the doorframe and bit his tongue."
What the hell's going on here? Which is just like a throwaway joke, I guess.
So the very next day, we see Homer going downtown, and he walks up to the clerk, the bureaucrat, as he's listed, and says, "You guys think I'm dead, but I'm not. Now I want you to straighten this out without a lot of your bureaucratic red tape and mumbo-jumbo."
Okay, Mr. Simpson. I'll just make the change here, and you're all set.
"Hey, I don't like your attitude, you water cooler dictator. What do you have in that secret government file anyway? I have a right to read it." And we actually see the bureaucrat spin the monitor around.
You sure do.
wife, Marjorie, children, Bartholomew, Lisa. Aha! See? This thing's all screwed up. Who the heck is Margaret Simpson?
Your youngest daughter.
Your youngest daughter? Well, how about this? This thing says my mother's still alive. She died when I was a kid. See? See that stone angel up there? That's my mother's grave. My dad points it out every time we drive by.
Mr. Simpson, maybe you should actually go up there.
And we do see Homer walk up to his mother's grave.
He's never been to his mother's grave.
But yeah, there's a lot there. But before we move on, actually, I do want to point out that it is super strange that they went back to the Homer doesn't know Maggie's name joke so quickly, because it was only a few episodes ago in Home Dum Diddly Doodly that they had the child protective services take the kids, and Homer had the same joke with the judge.
Maybe Maggie erased all their minds.
True, but this kind of gives a little bit of evidence to the conspiracy we thought that we talked a little bit about on the Secret Transmission podcast when Toby and the gang were kind enough to bring us on the show to discuss some Simpsons conspiracies. If you remember, one of them was that the Simpsons episodes don't happen in any particular order, so that they could all be from any time and any place, basically. So this, I feel like, gives just a little bit of shred of that this episode and Home Dum Diddly must be spaced farther apart than just a few episodes.
Yeah, but then he does the same bit in both of them, which would still bring question of that, which could play into the there's multiple Homers theory.
Well, there's a lot there, or I think I'm going to go with it was a good joke and the writers wanted to use it twice theory.
There he is.
We get to Homer's mother's grave, which Homer has apparently never been to. He starts to tell his mother he's sorry as he scrubs off the tombstone so they can read it, and discovers that here lies Walt Whitman. Ah, damn you, Walt Whitman! And he starts kicking it. Hate you, Walt freaking Whitman! Leaves of grass my ass.
I don't know. I really enjoy him yelling at Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman!
Ah! Yeah, it's really good, and this is actually a really, really popular joke, one that they are commonly, that's commonly talked about online, just because it's really funny, especially because why in the hell does Homer know anything about Walt Whitman? I mean, that's a real fun fact. David Silverman on the commentary points out that that's one of his favorite bits from this episode, just it gets him every single time when he's like, leaves of grass my ass!
Do go on.
A real quick fact, just to wrap that little note up, the real Walt Whitman site of burial, or his grave site, whatever, that was a weird way to phrase that, but it's in Camden, New Jersey, not in Springfield, wherever.
That was going to be my question. Thank you for answering that one.
Yeah. So, Homer's like, well, maybe I was just confused. Maybe it's that other grave over there, that one that says Simpson. And he gets there to discover that it's his own grave.
Freshly dug. Ah! Why does my death keep coming back to haunt me?
And he falls into his own grave, which is kind of spooky in a lot of ways. And it downright pisses off at least one older woman who comes to the grave screaming, "You awful, awful man! Get out of my son's grave!"
I hate to rain on your parade, lady, but this is my grave. Hey, wait a minute. Mom?
Homer?
I thought you were dead.
I thought you were dead.
Well, dang blast it. Isn't anybody in this daggum cemetery dead?
That's the grave digger, and at that point, the grave he's currently digging that has a coffin going into it, the coffin itself pops open, and we see Hans Mole Man pop out. I didn't want to cause a fuss, but now that you mention it.
Which we'll never see that gravedigger character again, if I'm if my memory serves me right. I don't recall ever seeing him again after this episode.
No, but that's such a good joke. I mean, there's no reason for Mole Man to be there, but that's just one of those times you've got to assume they're punching up the script and they're just like, hey, this'll be funny. And boy, oh boy, was it. It's always good to see Mole Man in a, like, ridiculously depressing scenario. He's essentially, he has to be at least partially inspiration for the Melvin character in Office Space. If you get, I think you have my stapler.
Maybe.
I feel like there's a lot of similarity to them.
Wasn't he Angry Milton too? We're getting too much into it. Let's continue.
Well, actually, let's not. Let's go ahead and take a quick break, because that's the end of our first act. We're going to go ahead and hear from some buddies of ours, and we'll be right back for Act 2 of Mother Simpson.
Hey, you know what's missing from your life? Yet another variety podcast. My Crumbling Audio brings you just that. Open, humorous, and frank discussion on horror, kink, wrestling, and gaming. Each week, Crumb, that's me, brings my brand of wit and wisdom to you with an in-depth look at some of my, and hopefully your, favorite topics. I'm available on iTunes, and you can plug my RSS feed into your favorite app or search My Crumbling Audio.
I'm Jay.
I'm Bob.
And I'm Corey.
We are the Cretans Guild.
We're a trio of manchildren whose friendship predates The Lion King, Green Day's Dookie, the N64, and the Chunnel.
We have backgrounds working in television, video games, radio broadcasting, creative writing, and pizza delivery. That's a large cheese, right?
On our podcast, Nerd or Not, you'll hear us talk about board games, TV, movies, comics, collectibles, video games, wrestling, theme parks. We even did a segment on f***ing pizza.
So check and listen to us on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. And check out our socials on Twitter and Instagram under Cretans Guild.
Welcome to the Guild.
We come back from our first break, and we see Homer and apparently his mother looking into each other's arms.
Homer, you grew up so handsome.
Some people say I look like Dan Aykroyd. I can't believe you're here! Dad always told me you died while I was at the movies. Oh, that's such a fucked up thing. Like, this whole sequence here, it's like, there's parts of it that are funny, but this is where you can start to really first feel that emotional weight of this episode, because this is a big fucking deal. And in fact, when this was pitched by the writer, Richard Appel, everybody was shocked that it had not been done before. Everybody was like, what do you mean we haven't, like, visited Homer's mom? Like, it was just one of those things that somehow slipped through the cracks, and it legitimately surprised people that had been at The Simpsons for years at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we've visited images or scenes from Homer's youth where you see Mona talking with Abe very briefly, but you've never seen, like, real development. If I remember correctly, have we seen that? Man, we've been doing this show for over 2 years now. I think I'm not making that up. I know we've at least talked about Homer's mother in the past, but like, you can see where it slips through the gaps, or the cracks.
I think that according to the commentary, they said that we had seen her once before, but she's not really named or really didn't have a lot of interaction. It was just a brief flashback sequence.
Yeah, where she was being sweet and Homer's dad was being Abe.
Right. And this is probably a good time to bring up, like, we were talking about how sweet and tender these moments are, and part of that is because of the delivery of the character, Mona Simpson, who is actually played by Glenn Close, who is she an Academy Award winner? I was about to announce her as an Academy Award winner, and then I realized I don't know. She's definitely has to have been nominated. She's amazing. She's such a good actress.
Absolutely, but I know we'll see Homer's mother a few more times after this episode, and I don't believe she'll ever do her voice again after this one.
I don't believe she will, if I remember as well. I think this is a one and done. And in fact, there's even a part of this episode that she's not actually doing the lines, but we'll get to that.
What?
Yeah, it's a fun little
you
nugget.
Just broke my childhood, just like Homer's mom.
I can't wait for this bomb to drop. You're going to be sitting on the edge of your seat for the rest of this podcast.
Now drop the bomb. Let's bust out the DDR, Matt Smiles.
Ooh. So basically what we have here is Homer and Mona are both shocked to see each other. They both expected to go visit their dead relative, and they found each other.
Funny how that worked out conveniently.
Homer's very curious, but for now, Mona's like, let's just, leave it at this and enjoy this moment. And when Mona says, let's enjoy the moment, Homer explains, Mom, there's something you need to know about me.
I almost always spoil the moment.
And we see a pelican land, which the sound I made, I realize is a generic bird sound. It does not fit a pelican.
It paints the
but
picture.
It's fine. A pelican lands on the head of Homer, and then just to heighten it, drops a live fish into his pants.
Which his pants are always snug. How does the logistics of this bit even work out? I'm sorry.
And Mona instantly showing her sweet side. That's okay, darling. It wasn't your fault. Which is completely fair. You cannot control a wild animal landing on your head and then dropping another wild animal into your pants. Come on.
But you can see the similarities between Homer and Abe in this moment, I feel like.
Yeah. So Homer chooses an unusual way, I would say, to break this news to his family. He walks in his living room and says, "Hey, everybody, I've got a big surprise for you. Presenting my mother." And everybody...
Even Maggie's shocked.
Yeah, they're all
even
shocked.
Maggie is shocked. That's incredible.
They stop eating, and they're just like, what? How? Huh? And Mona is just kind of awkwardly like, hello? I like Lisa's line here.
This is so weird. It's like something out of Dickens or Melrose Place.
Bart gives it his own spin as well. Where you been, Granny? Did they freeze you or something?
Oh my, such clever grandchildren. So full of questions and bright, shiny eyes.
Marge is very nervous, kind of awkwardly laughing about the fact that she finally has a mother-in-law. No more living vicariously through my girlfriends.
Hey, since you were a no-show at all the big moments of my life, you owe me years of back presents. Christmases, birthdays, Easters, Kwanzas, good report cards.
Bart actually grabs a calculator at this point. He's ringing up his grandmother's tab.
$75 a pop plus interest and penalties. You owe me $22,000.
And Homer comes running by, strangling Bart. Oh, Kwanzaa, you!
Homer, don't be so hard on little... What is his name?
She doesn't even know her own grandchild's name.
Oh.
There's something kind of sweet and I guess natural to the way that they immediately fell into their kind of tropes, their roles, like Mona who kind of became the grandmother role, even though she didn't know Bart's name. I think
Yeah, there is.
I think that the weird part of this situation wasn't how they reacted to it. It was how Homer presented this situation. Because, you should never, oh, you know that woman that we've all thought was dead your entire lives, or as long as you've known me? Yeah, here she is. Hi.
Well, it was done in a very Homer way as well, so
That's
okay.
accurate. Yes, absolutely. Also, I would love to see Bart's math for 20. I guess he spells it out. $75 a pop plus interest gets him to $22,000. Good Lord, that's a lot of money.
He said taxes and penalties.
True. I guess he charges a lot.
Or interest
of
and
late
penalties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That interest will get you, people.
There's probably some true math to that on how our government works, I'm sure.
Back to the trope thing we were talking about, or the family roles. Homer even kind of immediately goes into, believe it or not, a little bit more childish. Not in a irresponsible way, but just in the way he's acting. He's showing off his
Mom.
Yeah, exactly. And this is my room and this is my dresser. It's where I keep my shirts when I'm not wearing them.
Oh yes, right in the dressers, right in the drawers.
Ah, you remembered. Oh, I've missed moments like this, Mom.
Which is such there's no emotional tie to a dresser. And I mean, I got the feeling that they had this moment when he was a kid, but I feel like it's just doing it just to do it, basically.
I think to some extent it's to both show that they did emotionally connect, but at the same time, they didn't really have a lot of history together because...
there's no memories, really.
Right, or very few. And we're going to see a lot more of that here at some point down the line, but we're not quite there yet. We still got the grandmother...
Not dead yet.
Mona's still getting to know the family at this point for the most part, and she's actually really connecting with Lisa, which is pretty cool. She mentions that she saw all of her awards, and she was very impressed.
Oh, I just keep them out to bug Bart.
Don't be bashful. When I was your age, kids made fun of me because I read at the 9th grade level.
Me too.
And this is like back to Homer being the child. He's in the background walking on his hands, which is actually very impressive. But he's like, hey, Mom, look at me. Look at me. Look at what I can do.
I see you, Homer. That's very nice.
But you can tell that she's like just like acknowledging him like a mother would a toddler, honestly, while she's trying to have a conversation. It's exactly, now that I think about it, that's exactly what that looks like, is when I'm having a conversation with one of my friends who has children, and their children are kind of like in the background, and they'll say something that's like, yeah, I see you, do your thing, so that the kid will like keep playing.
I call bullshit. I think that you would be flipped and that you would totally be playing with the kid and doing that to the parent, being like, yeah, we have a great conversation. Let's play Star Wars.
In most cases, you're right, except it's usually Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Thank you, yeah.
Not that it's never Star Wars, don't get me wrong.
I just picture most kids having, like, the lightsaber toy things.
Oh, we definitely get down with those lightsaber toys.
There you go.
Injured more than one nephew with those things.
Oh, Miles.
Hey, it's my, I always tell them, anytime we're going to play, if you're going to be dumb, you've got to be tough, and we're about to get real dumb, so...
It's okay, though. It's a lightsaber, people, so it automatically cauterizes the wound after he inflicts it.
Duh. All of our listeners are educated, Richie. You don't have to worry about explaining those things. So... Either way, though, back to Grandma and Lisa, they're really bonding. I even there's a little joke where Mona's like, I would hardly consider a separate piece the 9th grade level, and they both snicker, and Lisa declares it's more like preschool.
I hate John Knowles.
Me too. I actually really like to, she says to Lisa, Mona says to Lisa, I feel like I have an instant rapport with you.
You didn't dumb it down. You said rapport.
And Lisa, you can tell, is genuinely happy in this moment. And the director's commentary, the creators of the show, talk about the idea that they really like that they could show maybe traces of where some of Lisa's intelligence may have came from, because this is on Homer's mother's side. Which, could have been recessive traits and things of that. Of course, we'll later have a episode that we learn more about all of the female Simpsons. But for now, in the timeline of the Simpsons, this was one of the first indicators that we kind of see maybe the history of Lisa's intelligence.
And why doesn't she remember? Well, I guess Grandma won't be around to really help out. So never mind. I was going to say something stupid, I guess. I'm a male Simpson.
Unfortunately, though, while Lisa looks very happy in this moment, it's instantly wrecked when a cop car starts to roll by, and Mona acts very suspicious. She immediately excuses herself and says she has to go.
Gotta run, Grandma stuff.
Lisa immediately notices, and she actually grabs Bart and takes him down to the basement, where she knows that they won't be able to be heard with the dryer running. She starts to explain... She has to yell, just shut up and listen.
She actually turns it off, immediately.
Yeah.
She's like, whatever, okay?
Yeah, whatever. Who's gonna hear us? Shut up and listen. There's something fishy about Grandma. Whenever we ask her where she's been all the time, she changes the subject. And just now, when a police car drove by, she ran into the house.
Yeah, I don't trust her either. When I was going through her purse, look what I found.
Oh, man. And what he found was a stack of driver's licenses saying things like Mona Simpson, Mona Stevens, Martha Stewart, who also went to jail, who actually went to jail, I should say, Penelope Olsen, and Muddy May Suggins. And Lisa points out that these are the calling cards of a con artist. And this is a great transition with the animation right here, because we go from Bart and Lisa pointing doubt on their grandmother immediately to a happy Homer. Probably the happiest Homer we've seen on the show thus far, at least on the level of Homer in Chocolate Land, because he is just so glad to have his mom back, and he never realized how much he missed her.
She's nice.
But
I just don't think you should get too excited about the woman who abandoned you for 25 years. You could get hurt again.
First, it wasn't 25 years. It was 27 years. And second, she has a very good reason.
Which was?
I don't know. I guess I was just a horrible son and no mother would want me.
Oh, homie, come on. You're a sweet, kind, loving man. I'm sure you were a wonderful son.
Then why did she leave me?
Let's find out.
This is a sad moment looking at the psychology or the psyche of Homer's mind. It's sad to think that anybody feels that way.
I actually really enjoy this moment. It's because I feel like it ties Homer and Marge together so well, because it's not like Marge makes it like a group effort where she's consoling him, but she's leading him down the correct path on thinking, but like she doesn't just blatantly, after the first line, doesn't blatantly it'll be like, this is what's going to happen. Like she leads him down this thought process, and then she goes, let's find out.
She helps them discover it together. Yeah, I get
that.
That's
and she's there with him.
It's a good scene. I do still think, though, that line in particular, when he's like, I guess I'm a horrible son and no mother would want me. It's like, wow,
yeah.
I actually feel that way? Like, oh my god.
It's emotional, man.
Yeah.
Guess I'm just a horrible son and nobody would want me.
So the family approaches Grandma Simpson on the couch reading a book appropriately titled, Steal This Book. Mother Simpson, we'd like to ask you a few questions about your past.
Can't reminisce. Sleeping.
And then Bart gets intense. Spill it, Muddy May, or we're calling the cops.
Please don't. He even pulls the phone up, like he's got the phone off the cord, ready to dial.
Oh, yeah. And then Lisa threatens even worse than the cops. Find them. We're going to call your husband, Grandpa.
No, I'll talk. I'll tell you everything. I've wanted to tell you.
And this is actually a nice segue into a flashback, and it all started in the 1960s. We see a young Homer playing the game Operation, and he's taking out the wrench tackle. Mom! Mom! Mom!
Oh, my little homie bear. Mwah. Time for bed.
Sing me my bedtime song, Mom.
Ooey gooey, rich and chewy inside. Golden flaky, tender cakey outside. Wrap the inside in, the outside, is it good?
Darn tootin'!
Doing the
Big
Fig
Newton.
Here's the tricky part.
And apparently all it takes is the popular Fig Newton jingle from the 1960s to put Homer right to sleep.
It's a soft kitty song.
As Homer sleeps, Mona goes out and talks to Abe, who's watching TV, and mentions that their son is really cute.
Probably. I'm trying to watch the Super Bowl. If people don't support this thing, it might not make it.
And we see on the television Howard Cosell. Joe Willie Namath swaggering off the field, his sideburns an apogee of sculpted sartorium. The foppish follicles pioneered by Ambrose Burnside. Appomattox 1865. And then we get an incredible bit of animation here as we see a voiceover of what's going on inside of Mona's head with this great transition. It's like her awakening, and you even get Sunshine of Your Love start playing. Bum, 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 bum.
His wild, untamed facial hair revealed a new world of rebellion, of change, a world where doors were open for women like me. But Abe was stuck in his button-down, plastic, fantastic Madison Avenue scene.
Look at them sideburns! He looks like a girl! Now, Johnny Unitas, there's a haircut you could set your watch to.
She had Johnny Unitas had literally like the exact same haircut as Abe, or Abe, had the same exact haircut of Johnny Unitas.
It's a flat top, like just old school crop style. Yeah, it's that
army cut, basically.
But
it's too long for army.
I cannot emphasize enough how much I love this sequence, especially with the animation, because as you kind of gaze into Mona's eyes and then the room starts to spin around her, it goes from her being more of like a traditional, I guess somebody who's dressed more conservatively, and you immediately start to get those flashes of that 60s era vibe, of that rebellion, of that psychedelic paint and body paint and stuff like that. And it's just a really cool sequence. And like I said, to me, this was like Mona's awakening, where you could see her becoming who she was.
Well, and they tied it into something that was real with the whole like Joe Namath and Johnny Unitas, not altercation, but comparison between the two. Because if I remember correctly, that was like an actual thing where people were just like, "Oh my God, Joe Namath needs to cut his hair."
Yeah, all the damn hippies.
Guys.
Yeah, this was post Vietnam era, or like there's a lot of Vietnam. This was during the Vietnam era. And, this was where you had the hippies that were the long hair and all that good stuff, and Joe Namath definitely represented that more than Johnny Unitas did.
Oh yeah, a lot more.
So this is where Grandma started to really, like I said, find herself, and she said she soon found people who also shared her views at the state college. And then you see her in shots of doing demonstrations for various protests.
Anthrax, gangrene, swimmers here. Get your germ lab out of here.
When Mona walks by this crowd for the first time, she instantly becomes part of the group.
How could I not become radical when we are fighting a force of pure evil?
Hey, Mr. Burns, enough already with the germs! And that's when we see a very young Mr. Burns sitting on his balcony, or standing on his balcony.
A very young, old Mr. Burns.
Yeah, he's just got more hair. He's like 50 in this. I don't know.
Oh, their flowered power is no match for my glower power.
And we actually see a young Clancy Wiggum below in his student guard or student security t-shirt. Well, that's some nice glowering, Mr. B.
I was having trouble pinpointing how old this actually makes Wiggum, because if this was 27 years ago...
In the 1960s, yeah, that's,
that means... I'm just comparing Wiggum to Homer, because they always seem relatively the same age to me. But if this is 27 years ago, and Wiggum is at worst, like, students... I would assume he's a student at the college, which would make him at least 18, but maybe on, like, a whim... like a student program, a transition program where he could be like 15 or 16. I mean, that still puts him over 40.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of questions on the timeline of this episode, and every time they add a new flashback, it seems to just complicate matters worse. Yeah. But remember,
that's totally acceptable.
Yeah.
He could be like 42 to 44, and Homer could be 39, and they could still have kids of differing ages. Like, that's totally acceptable. I don't want to
It makes sense
people
enough,
get mad at
for
us
sure.
for that.
Yeah, totally.
It's in the ballpark.
But for now, though, we learn that the enemy of Mona's cause was Mr. Burns himself, who was actually using germ warfare, trying to study for the military.
Or to sell to the other side. Who knows?
Yeah, true. Just to make money is all he really cares about. But the hippies have a plan. They make a bomb. But not the type of bomb that explodes. The type of bomb that when it goes off, it actually sets off antibiotics, I think it was. And it goes into his germ research labs and instantly starts killing off all of the germs that Burns was using. I love Wiggum is actually running in fear from this gas cloud, but as it catches him, he's yelling and screaming as he's gasping, No, wait a minute! Bronchial tubes clearing, asthma disappearing. Acne remains, but asthma disappearing.
I like the hippie right before that too. That it's like, Burns Lab is gonna be history, man. Germ history. Oh Oh man, I got the munchies.
Another thing I wanted to point out that it really surprised me, to be honest, when I looked this up, because I had to Google who Spyro Agnew was. The clock they used, the timing device for this bomb, was actually a Spyro Agnew alarm clock, which was actually a real-life product that existed. They didn't make this up for the show. They just animated it. I didn't know who Spyro Agnew was, I'll be honest. I had to Google him, and I was shocked to find, when I Googled this guy, suddenly I've got tons of articles and news reports from the last couple of days. And what I learned was Spyro Agnew was the 39th vice president under Richard Nixon. And what ended up happening with him is fairly fascinating, because basically he did a lot of crimes. A lot of very obvious crimes that he was basically able to get away with because of the office that he held. Does that sound like anybody you know from modern day times? I'll keep going. Spyro Agnew ended up actually making a plea deal with prosecutors that he would give up the vice presidency and he would plead to one count of tax evasion, which ended up costing him about $10,000, which was a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the money that he very blatantly took. So basically, this guy was able to auction off his vice presidency in order to get away with all the crimes that he committed. And there's actually, the reason it was so relevant is in the last 2 days, at the time that we're recording this, it's probably going to be like a month old by the time this airs because we're getting ahead for the holidays. But at the time that I'm recording this, which is December 18th, 19th, this 2 days ago, the Washington Post wrote an article that spawned a bunch of other articles and reports that are very similar that are basically setting it up that Donald Trump could very much do the same thing or could be gearing up to do the exact same thing. Since at this point he's committed some pretty blatant crimes, he might trade the nuclear codes for the crimes that he's already committed.
Well, I mean, you said he was the VP for Nixon, correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, that brings up a whole lot of other questions. And honestly, Miles, though, this is not going to be the last time that we see Agnew. If your Simpsons fandom can seep into your brain here for a second, he will once again be vice president, albeit without a head, for Nixon again in Futurama. So
yeah.
The headless Agnew, I mean, remember, he's around all the time.
That's true. And now we know. Now, next time I watch Futurama, I'll probably get those jokes. Hopefully. So, again, we see that Burns' germs have been destroyed, and he actually is running into the germ lab trying to save them, and ends up getting trampled by the crowd of hippies. And Mona actually sees him in his weakened condition and takes sympathy on him and goes to help. She says, "You poor, poor man, let me help you up." But when she does so, they look into each other's eyes and they realize who each other are.
You just made a very big mistake. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison.
And that's when Wiggum slams the door open and actually crushes Burns. "My asthma's gone. Listen to me breathe." Wah. 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 I was doing that earlier and I caused my dogs to start panicking.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We practice sometimes. I like how Burns is running up to the building saying, my germs, they've never harmed a soul. They never even had a chance."
Yeah. Those poor young babies.
Babies.
Grandma points out in her voiceover, "From that moment on, my life as I knew it was over." And then we see a very young Kenny Brockelstein come up on the television.
Only one member of the Springfield Seven was identified. She's been described as a woman in her early 30s, yellow complexion, and may be extremely helpful. For Channel 6 News, I'm Kenny Brockelstein.
We actually see that this is when Grandma Simpson or Mona decided she was going to have to leave, and she sneaks into Homer's room and kisses him, saying that she's sorry as she leaves. And in present day, we see Homer saying that he thought he dreamed that kiss. And even Marge is quick to apologize.
I'm so sorry I misjudged you, Mom. You had to leave to protect your family.
They keep asking questions, and Lisa asks how did she survive, and Grandma tells her that she had some helps from her friends. Jerry Rubin gave her a job marketing his line of health shakes. She proofread Bobby Seale's cookbook, and she ran credit checks at Tom Hayden's Porsche dealership. Which, there's a lot of reference here. So all three of those names, which was Jerry Rubin, Bobby Seale, and Tom Hayden, were actually part of the real-life Chicago 7, which was also referenced when Kenny Brockelstein said the Springfield 7. All of that is referencing the Chicago 7, which was a group of originally actually 8 people, because Bobby Seale, who was one of the co-founders of the Black Panthers in the 1960s, was actually removed from the group and tried separately. The other two, Rubin and Hayden, were still part of the remaining 7, who were all 1960s activists who were very strongly protesting the Vietnam War and sometimes did not necessarily always stay on the right side of the law to do so.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. I just always assumed they were shady people that like she inadvertently was helping take down on accident or something, but that makes way more sense.
Political
Although
activists.
if what I said was true, it'd be really funny.
So Homer still doesn't understand just one thing. In all those years, why did you never try to contact me?
But I did. I sent you a care package every week.
Oh, come on, Mom. We use that same line on the kids when they're at camp.
But I did. I really did. I'll prove it to you.
And they actually go to the post office and walk up to the clerk. Homer asks, any undelivered mail for Homer J. Simpson?
No. Oh, wait, this.
And he lists this giant sack of letters.
That's what happens when you don't tip your letter carrier on Christmas. But I love how he's just like, no. Oh, wait, but there's a shit ton.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so delayed, like an immediately no. Except for this tiny little giant package, yeah. And wouldn't you know it, on this very day, Mr. Burns himself has shown up at the post office with a very unusual request.
Yes, I'd like to send this letter to the Prussian consulate in Siam by aeromail. Am I too late for the 4:30 autogyro?
I better look in the manual.
Oh, the ignorance.
And that's when Mona and Homer start walking out, and Mr. Burns takes notice of Mona.
Wait a minute. I know that woman. But from when and in what capacity?
And he just so happens to see the, 1960s wanted poster of Mona.
To be fair, that could still be hanging around a post office. Not a lot of people outside of, those people go to the post office.
I don't think that Mona would still be wanted for that long ago. I would assume there's some statute of limitations on that, but maybe I'm wrong.
There's no statute of limitations on justice, Miles.
When Burns realizes who she is, though, it's really funny because the squeaky teenager kid in the background is like, this book must be out of date. I don't see Prussia, Siam, or autogyro.
Well, keep looking.
And that's enough time for Mona to disappear. And we're going to disappear for just a short while we take another break, but we'll be right back for the conclusion of Mother Simpson.
I gotta pee.
You do you, boo.
Hey guys, I'm here to talk about a serious problem today. One that can affect us all, but it's also a problem that can be fixed with everyone's help. I'm Richie the Whiz Kid, and I'm talking about podcasts. So many podcasts in the Somebody's Network need your help. They are being malnourished. Some are living in terribly harsh conditions, and some are Canadian. But with your help, a corner can be turned for these poor podcasts, especially in regards to Best Darn Diddly. You can go to popthreads.com and use the code Simpsons at checkout. Or You can buy Best Darn Diddly merch at tpublic.com. Most importantly, you can go to patreon.com/bestdarndiddly to donate now for as little as $1 a month. For less than 4 cents a day, you can bring a smile to these poor podcasters' faces. So let's work together to end the poverty of these podcasts. Let's be honest, you were probably just going to get a Krusty Burger with that dollar anyways. Cut to the pictures of starving podcasts.
Hi, I'm Drew.
I'm Nate.
And I'm Tanner, and we are the hosts of Headline Heroes.
Every week we take a bizarre, out there article,
Germans build underground pipeline for beer.
and attempt to create a superhero or villain.
The obvious one is that they have a giant robot that runs off of beer.
Along the way, we discuss powers, design a costume, and of course, struggle with a name.
Graham Sam? No.
Damn, Sam, no!
And inevitably, we get off subject and talk about the really important stuff.
I did go to Bill Engvall's website, and I just want to tell you a couple of things I'm seeing here.
Please do, I wish you would. But we always arrive with the super creation we are proud of. Join Headline Heroes every Tuesday as we try to make reality a little more super.
Dun 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 dun. Dun
Dun dun dun dun dun.
We come back from our second break and into our third act, and somehow it turns into an episode of Dragnet. Are you sure this is the woman you saw in the post office?
Absolutely. Who could forget such a monstrous visage? She has the sloping brow and cranial bumpage of the career criminal.
And Burns actually has a phrenology head out on his desk, and Smithers has to explain that phrenology was dismissed as quackery 160 years ago.
Of course you'd say that. You have the brain pan of a stagecoach tilter.
At any rate, the FBI will track down this mystery woman and put her behind bars. And let me just say real quick that according to the commentary, most everybody on the commentary in this whole sequence was cracking up because apparently if you're a Dragnet fan, there are a ton of little references and jokes to this series, which everybody agrees is a really good show, except for Josh Weinstein, who doesn't necessarily say it's not a good show, but he just says it's not for him. And I have to say, I feel the exact same way. I remember this used to come on all the time at Nick at Night, and I just turned it off because I found it so boring.
Yes, I completely agree with you. But again, that's us watching it on reruns and syndication. So,
as a kid, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure for its audience, it was a lovely and enjoyable show.
And apparently, if you are one of those people that believes that this was a lovely and enjoyable show, this whole sequence is just a riot as they reference a lot of things that happen. But they have a little conversation here. It's Friday and Gannon. How does it happen, Joe?
How does a sweet young lady mortgage her future for a bunch of scraggy ideals and greasy-haired promises?
Maybe she thought the war in Southeast Asia was so immoral, her end justified the means.
Gee, Joe, you haven't been the same since your son went crazy in Vietnam.
It's a pain that never ends. And apparently that, too, is even a reference to the characters in Dragnet. Again, I don't know. I'm not familiar with it enough. I just looked it up. But yeah, it's
probably like a whole years and seasons worth of stuff all crammed into like 2 lines.
Right, exactly.
I'm just, again, we're just guessing here, but the Simpsons writing staff's usually right on I was going to say on par, but that's dragnetting them.
So moving on in the episode, we cut back to the Simpson home, and I personally think this is another just really sweet moment because it's Lisa, I feel like really more than anybody, Homer, of course. Homer bonds with his mother a lot, but Lisa seems to have a real connection to her grandmother as well, and they're actually jamming together, which is really cool. Lisa's on her saxophone, Granny's on a guitar, and they're singing, "How many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man?"
Boop, 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 boop. 7!
No, Dad, it's a rhetorical question.
Rhetorical, eh? 8!
Dad, do you even know what rhetorical means?
Do I know what rhetorical means?
And the doorbell
Ding
rings.
dong! Saved by the bell.
Bart is yelling, "Quick, Grandma, hide!" and peeking out of the curtains, and they're trying to get her out of view, but Abe comes bursting in. "No door is gonna keep me from my meddling! Stand up straight, Bart!"
Abe?
And Abe's in shock here. "What the? Now here's a piece of bad news."
Oh, Abe. You've aged terribly.
"What do you expect? You left me to raise the boy on my own."
I had to leave, but you didn't have to tell Homer I was dead.
"It was either that or tell him his mother was a wanted criminal. You were a rotten wife, and I never, ever forgive you. Can we have sex? Please?"
Oh, Abe.
"Well, I tried. What's for supper?" Oh, this sequence is so bad but so funny, and it's, again, just one of those moments of, like, it's probably exactly how an old man would feel in that moment of, wow, you, like, really pissed me off in our past, but damn it, I'm horny, and we do have a sexual history, so can we please rub them together?
My issue is, like, the whole, like, oh, Abe, you've aged terribly. That part was what played in all the syndication runs of The Simpsons for the ad of the upcoming episode. So, like, I feel like I've seen this scene thousands of times. Because, in fact, I might have actually seen it thousands of times. But you know what I'm talking about, where it'd be like, tonight on The Simpsons. It would do this little bit over and over and over, 80 times a day.
I'm very glad you brought those up, because we're going to talk about those more later too, actually, but I'm saving it for the end. More build-up, more suspense. There's still that other moment that I haven't revealed yet. All of that to come and more, and just 2.5 pages of script remaining. It's going to get exciting here, folks.
Tease.
For now, though, we are back to the Dragnet parody with Friday and Gannon interviewing a cab driver. "Yeah, I might have seen her."
Well, according to our pewter aging program, she should look about...
And there's a long pause where Gannon's typing into the computer, and when he flips around the screen, it's just the large number 25 on it.
25 years older.
But still, somehow, that immediately makes the cabbie recognize, "Yeah, I seen her. That is to say, I saw her."
I've always loved that bit.
Another great bonding sequence back at the Simpsons home where Grandma Simpson is sharing a little bit of the 60s with her grandchildren, and they're actually tie-dyeing shirts, which is really fun. Bart's all excited. "Look at me, Grandma. I'm a hippie. Peace, man. Groovy. Bomb Vietnam. 4 more years. Up with people."
I always loved this scene because I think I was in the 6th or 7th grade around this time in middle school, and we had just tie-dyed shirts as a thing when we were going over this time in history. So I thought I was cool and in the know when the scene popped up, and I think I even remember talking to my mom. I was like, "Oh yeah, like I did this," and I like ran to my room and got the shirt they made us tie-dye and put it on, and like, I just felt like I was so sophisticated because I understood.
And then your mom probably laughed and went to her closet and got all of her actual tie-dye shirts from the 60s and was like...
I always assumed that was going to happen, and my mom always points out to me, I was a kid during the 60s. Like, I was not... Like, I'm not as old as you think I am.
Love you, Nancy.
Shout out to Mom.
Shout out to all the moms.
Oh.
Word to your mother.
Now I'm sad.
Oh, not yet. We're getting there. Okay. There's another really great bit here where Grandma is like excited to see that they have a little bit of the spirit of the 60s alive in the kids. We get this bit with Maggie dancing with body paint on, and she has written on her stomach, "Ban the bottle," which this reminds me of Austin Powers, because that was my first experience to seeing these cutaways. But that is actually a reference to the 1960 show Laugh-In, which was a show that just had a lot of this imagery. There was comedy and music and random dancing, and it was known to randomly cut away to a young Goldie Hawn dancing in body paint, and she would often have little messages written on her body.
Well, and we're also getting this one last moment between Lisa and Mona where she's connecting with somebody in her own family that's very impactful and makes you feel for Lisa.
Oh, yeah, when Lisa reached out, she's like, Grandma, I used to think that I was adopted. I couldn't understand how I fit into this family. Now that I met you, I suddenly make a lot of sense. And they actually have, like, a really tender hug.
Yeah, like that's just like, tugs at your heartstrings. All this connection Lisa's getting in this episode, just really, really sweet.
And that's what the Simpsons always do so well. They manage to hit you both with the laughs and the heartstrings.
Exactly.
We cut back to our Dragnet fellas continuing their interviews, and there's actually a bit, they're interviewing the gravedigger, and they find out that there was actually two ladies that came by earlier that day. One was real pretty, the other sort of plain. FBI guys, Burns and Smithers, all immediately recognize this to be the Bouvier twins.
Ma'am, we're going to need your assistance in locating this individual.
Selma is immediately thinking that this guy's, like, flirting with her. Oh, I'm fresh. Don't you want to play good cop, bad cop?
Ma'am, we're all good cops.
I had no intention of playing the good cop.
You? Look, we know you bought the tombstone. We know the fugitive visited the tombstone. Whose tombstone was it?
And Patty's like, just lift up your coffee cups and see. And we actually see that it's Homer's tombstone from earlier. And the best part, though, is we get Chief Wiggum trying to read it. He says, put out an APB on Ura Swiss R Diwo. Better start with Greektown.
He read that very well, too.
Well, yeah, especially since, I have it written out, but he was reading Homer's name upside down as it was engraved into the tombstone. It wasn't easy.
That's Homer J. Simpson, Chief. You're reading it upside down.
Cancel that APB, but bring back some of them gyros.
Chief, you're talking into your wallet.
The delivery on this bit is really good, actually. Like, it's so funny when they pan out and you see Wiggum's just talking to his wallet the whole time.
It was really hard not to slip into an Eddie there while doing Friday.
So it seems like everything's worked out well, and Mona is going to become a part of the family dynamic at the Simpsons household. They're actually having a meal together, and Lisa's asking if she's ever considered moving back to Springfield. And Homer's even like, yeah, you could live with Grandpa again. Everybody's laughing, including Abe, until he stops dead and is like, oh, I'm a living joke.
That is his purpose, yes.
Uh-huh. Mona decides she's going to take a rest for a while, but just then we see the phone ringing, or hear the phone ringing, and Homer answers it. Mom, there's nothing to be alarmed about, but could you take one last look at the family and then join me in the kitchen? Way to keep it cool, Homer. Way to keep it cool. But hey, he's actually doing a good job under the circumstances because Burns has literally brought an army. He's sitting outside in a tank approaching the house.
I've been waiting 25 years for this moment.
And we start to hear Rise of the Valkyries. Dun 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 dun. But it very quickly turns into Waterloo by ABBA, because apparently he was borrowing that tape from Smithers.
No, apparently Smithers borrowed that tape
from him. Yeah, somebody recorded some ABBA on there, is what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, Smithers literally goes, I'm sorry, sir, I must have taped over that.
As the tank breaks down the front door, Friday and the FBI agents run in, and they actually encounter Abe. Freeze! FBI! The jig is up.
All right, I'll admit it. I'm the Lindbergh baby. Where, goo, I miss my fly, dada.
Are you? I love how straight, though, Friday plays this. Are you trying to stall us, or are you just senile?
A little from column A, a little from column B.
And that, I'm declaring, is my favorite joke of the episode, which I have not said up until this point.
Yeah.
I try so hard.
Okay, yeah. Was that a big payoff enough for you, Miles?
Yes, no.
Which I always say this forever.
Everything.
Since I saw this episode the very first time. I literally say this all the time. I love it.
It's a great, great answer to most questions. And
I
it's
think
enough...
it's even a big popular meme form, right?
It is, and it's enough of a distraction for Mona to have gotten away.
Somehow, from all the tanks and everything that was outside.
And then they actually flee into the countryside, out in the middle of nowhere.
Desert side, you mean?
Yeah, desert side, you're right, I'm sorry. Into the desert side, just basically out in the middle of nowhere is what I'm trying to say. And Mona's excited. We made it, Homer!
It's all thanks to our anonymous tipster. But who are you? And why did you tip us off?
Well, it's 'cause of your old lady that I got rid of my asthma that was keeping me out of the academy.
Thanks.
Sure. Just think of me as an anonymous friend who rose through the ranks of the Springfield Police to become Chief Clancy Wig.
Click. Yak.
One last really good joke of the episode, which is very funny, but from here on out, get ready to get the sniffles because it's getting real. A 1960s Volkswagen van, or at least it looks like a Volkswagen van, but then we hear later that it actually has a battery, so I guess not. But it's time for her to go, and Homer points out, at least this time I'm awake for your goodbye.
Oh, remember, whatever happens, you have a mother, and she's truly proud of you. Even though you're working for the guy that's causing me to run away, and you don't ever bring this up through the entirety of this episode.
And honestly, that's fine by me, because the impact of this line is so heavy. I mean, like, this is a tearjerker moment right here when it very much reminds me of the Mr. Bergstrom bit with "You are Lisa Simpson."
Right.
In this case, it's that you have a mother and she's proud of you. I mean, yeah, I get your point, but at the same time, I think that she knew more than anything that's what Homer needed.
Well, they never bring up that that's who he works for either, because they literally don't get enough time.
Yeah, and I mean, they're too busy unraveling her past before they're being harassed by the man. Homer actually yells out as her hippie accomplice yells out, the van only has 20 minutes of battery juice left, so she's gotta go. Homer actually says, "Don't forget me," which is kind of sad in itself, too.
Dude, that's like incredibly sad. Like, it's it's the reason it's so impactful, because like to him, like, yeah, it's been 27 years and he was forgotten, at least in his mind, that he feels he was forgotten, even though she says he wasn't.
Yeah, it's very heavy. Those three words are very, very heavy.
Yeah.
There is a tiny bit of levity here with the very last line of the episode, because as Grandma Simpson, Mona Simpson, gets into the hippie van, she says, "Don't worry, Homer. You'll always be a part of me." And as she steps into the van, she actually hits her forehead on the car and says, "Go!"
And I love that animation moment, and the animation from this moment through the credits, because like Homer is like sad, but he has like that little like smile that like he sees himself, basically.
There's a lot that goes into this whole last sequence. I'm confident if you're listening to this podcast that you've probably seen this image. It's with Homer sitting on his car. It starts before sunset, but transitions into the night, implying that Homer just sits there for hours on end, staring into the night sky down the road that he last saw his mother leave him. And there's so much that comes into this. There's the music. Alf Clausen was a big part of this episode and really wrote this piece that really brought so much just weight to the emotion of the situation. And David Silverman, the director of this episode, was actually the one to add the image at the end of the episode. It was originally just the song over a black credit screen like we would normally see, and it was his decision late in the production to put that in, and it was such a good decision, and it made such a big impact.
Dude, like I'm like tearing up as we're freaking talking about this, man. Like it's just like, damn.
It is so heavy. I'm 100% with you. Like it so heavily weighs on your heart to think about this. And Bill Oakley actually even said that during the commentary while they were recording the commentary for them, same thing. He was literally tearing up just watching it during the commentary. Like it's that heavy emotionally.
Yeah.
There is one other thing I'll say real quick, just to lighten the mood a little bit. I mentioned earlier at the very beginning of the episode that Glenn Close did a wonderful job providing the voice of Mona Simpson, but there was one line that she really struggled with. She, for the life of her, just could not get a good doe out. So they actually used the table
don't
read.
Do it, Miles.
They used the table read recording of Pamela Hayden, or the temporary track recording, of Pamela Hayden actually provided Mona Lisa's doe. Everything else was Glenn Close.
You just broke my freaking heart, Miles.
Oh.
And how dare you?
That does actually bring us to the end of our third act and to the end of Mother Simpson. Richie, with a tear in your eye, is there anything else that you or that book of yours want to add about this episode?
Yeah, man, I want to point out that my guidebook just completely botched this moment in the guidebook because it literally has a little block that always says the stuff you may have missed. And oh boy, does it have that block, and it has a lot of information we've been going over, but it does not say the stuff you may have missed. So, it is literally something this guidebook may have missed.
Weird. How about yourself, sir?
I would like to point out that I do think this might be the most like somberly beautiful ending to an episode, if and only if we didn't have a Maggie Makes 3. So, yeah, this
or
is
another way of putting that is it's the second most somber episode.
I think this is the most beautiful moment, just because it's so much said with nothing. Whereas in the other instance with Maggie Makes 3, it is so much said with a lot being said and everything being there and a lot of imagery and a lot of stuff to look. Damn it! They're both doing the same damn thing. I don't know. I can't talk my way around this one, Miles.
Okay, fair enough. I'll take this last little bit then. One last bit from the trivia, the director's commentary that I thought was really funny. So the writer of this episode, Richard Appel, is actually married to a woman who in real life is named Mona Simpson. That's his wife's name. And as of the time of the commentary recording, he said that still, to that day, there was people that were confused at the history of The Simpsons and would actually think that he was the creator of the show and that he based it off of his family, because clearly that's his wife is the mother character and the other people in the show must be other figures in his life. Oh, and before I forget, we had talked about the little teaser trailer things that happened earlier in this episode. It was when Grandpa would when Mona would say how sad Grandpa is, basically. This episode, they had to fight, they being the creators of the show, Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein, they had to fight extra hard to make sure that there were no ads ran during the original airing of the closing credits because they thought it would completely ruin the moment. And while there really wasn't much they could do in syndication once the reruns started hitting, the very first time this episode played on Fox, there were no ads promoting what was coming up next during the end of the show.
Oh, well, look what we learned today.
Just a fun little bit there. But that will do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly Review Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate it so much when you hit that download button and come on this journey through The Simpsons, the Golden Age, and beyond with us. Make sure you follow our show at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY. You can also find me at Mr. Most Days Off and Richie at the Wiz_Kid 23. We look forward to being back with you again next week with another popular sideshow. Well, I meant to say side character, but it's a sideshow character too. Sideshow Bob returns to the show with the episode Sideshow Bob's Last Cleaning.
Damn you, Walt Whitman!
And until next time, be cromulent to each other.
Hey, this is the Toph, host of the Gravity Beard Podcast, a variety show with interviews and discussions on a wide range of topics. Our guests have included a viral YouTube star, a former child actor. We've even had a guy on who may have solved the D.B. Cooper case. It's a delicious box of audio chocolate. You never know what you'll get. Find it on Podbean, iTunes, and other places you listen to podcasts. It's the Gravity Beard Podcast. It's what your ears will want to be listening to.